Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. Today is Tuesday, which means we have the BluePrint Power Hour where you get to ask your questions and we get to answer them. Before we start with that, of course, we always have to thank our title sponsor, and that's Legendary Foods. Without them, and the truth of the matter is without Ron Penna, let's be honest here. Ron Penna has been a huge supporter of this show since he started Quest Nutrition. And then when he sold Quest Nutrition, he made sure that Quest stayed with us for a while, and they did. They only left the beginning of this year. And when he started Legendary Foods, he became our title sponsor. You can't say enough about loyalty. Let's be honest. Ron doesn't need this show, but this show needs Ron, and he knows that, and he's very gracious about it. And that's why I keep telling people to patronize Legendary Foods. If you go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10, we've been talking about the tasty pastry, but they have nut butters, they have seasoned almonds that are out of this world and really were their lead products. And then when they introduced the tasty pastry, which was an alternative to the Pop-Tart, it was a game changer. It's actually outpacing protein bars. It really is, because it's not loaded with fiber. It's enjoyable. You feel like you're cheating, but you're not. The flavors are amazing. And the new cake style tasty pastry is a game changer because it's flaky and it's puffy and it's soft and it's kind of like eating a apple turnover. And the new red velvet cake is all over the internet because people love them so much. You feel like you're cheating, but you're not. 20 grams of high quality protein, 5 net carbs, less than 1 gram of sugar. Check them out. And you can win. We give away boxes every day now. We really do. Thanks to Ron Penna, because he's so generous and gracious to our audience. If you listen during the commercial break, when you hear the secret word, email it to onair@superhumanradio.net and include your mailing address so I don't have to ping you back and ask for it. And you could be enjoying tasty pastries in your home next week. So don't forget to listen to the secret word. And without further delay, let's bring pal on, and that's Rob Regish. Play his music.
Calling all BluePrint Army. Fall in line. It's time for the BluePrint Power Hour with Coach Rob Regish on the Superhuman Radio Network.
Hey, Rob, how you doing, man?
I am doing great. It is 61 degrees here, so I'm sure we're still colder than you, but it's moving in the right direction.
No. We're having a cold snap right now. We are actually down in the low 60s ourselves. So, it cooled off here. And we're supposed to have cool weather for the next week, which means not a lot of motorcycle riding for me. And that makes me sad because I love to be on my bike more than anything. I love to be on the bike.
Cool.
So what's going on with you? I told you that I'm back in the gym. This is my second day back. I took a month off. And I got to tell you something. I didn't lose much muscle, and I definitely didn't lose any strength. But right now, when I come back for the next 2 weeks, I do full body.
Yep.
I literally just train for 30 minutes. I do 2 sets of 10 of a variety of movements: hit shoulders, chest, back, legs, biceps, triceps. and I do some lateral raises for the side heads of the shoulders, and I'm out of there literally 30 minutes. I do that for the next 2 weeks.
That's terrific. I'm in the midst of a week off myself. I took and passed a test at the end of phase 2 of the 4-phase program I'm on. So, phase 3 starts next week, and I'm just trying to make sure I'm 100% physically and mentally ready to go.
Yeah. Oh, we have our first question already. I'll get this up. It's about the COVID vaccine. We will talk about that from Robert Thompson. Please post your questions. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, you can post your questions, and we will answer every single question, no matter how ridiculous it is. So let's do that. All right, let's start off with the first question. These are sent in to Coach Rob directly at rob@coachrob.com, right?
Yep.
And they can also be sent to onair@superhumanradio.net, the same place that you send your entry to win a box of tasty pastries. Max Freeman says, where do you stand on strength training for combat sports?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll preface my answer by saying, I don't exactly have tons of experience. My experience in combat sports is limited to 4 to 5 years of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. So it's not like I have experience in all these other disciplines. However, I can discuss, I think, in some generalities and give you my take on things. So first of all, most people that are coming right from our world, from a strength training background, they usually have plenty of muscle and strength to do whatever they need to do on the mat or in the octagon or on the street. The problem is a lot go back to it and only it frequently. And so what's typically lacking in the vast majority of cases is not muscle and strength, it's conditioning. So work on the heart and lungs takes on a new importance. Now, notice that what I didn't say. I didn't say jogging. I didn't say, leisurely walking, stuff like that. It's going to be a lot more involved in that. But I'm also thinking about like boxing. I've never boxed competitively, but I've done plenty of heavy bag work, and I know it's extremely tiring, right? Everything from the footwork to the dancing around the guy or the bag rather, to hitting the bag. And look, even keeping your shoulder or your hands up, the front of your shoulders will burn like hell, after so many minutes of doing that. So if we look at it from, let's say, an MMA perspective, because that encompasses all disciplines, right? The situation, though, is still much the same. Conditioning matters, and it matters a hell of a lot. Now, I'm also going to caution you that you're going to encounter coaches and other people who tell you that power's bad. Muscle and power is always a negative. What they're really trying to say is that the more power you use, the faster that you will gas out. Okay. And that's true. The more power you use, the lower your gas tank gets. So everybody's got a gas tank, and how fast you go through it obviously matters. And you can go through it real fast, doing things like headlocks, which won't do a damn thing to him, but they'll tire you out.
Yeah, I want to mention something too, because you're spot on about this. So Mike Miller is a friend of the show, and back in the day, Mike Miller was probably one of the strongest men in the world, the first man to squat over 1,200 pounds in a full meet. I think he pulled 800, he benched 700, and he pulled 1221.
Yeah.
Squatted 1221. Mike tapered down, lost a bunch of body fat, and decided to become an MMA fighter. And everybody on the SureDog website said the same thing. This guy's going to gas out. He's got way too much muscle. Like you can't feed that muscle for very long. And especially when you're applying that muscle, that strength, and holding somebody or pounding somebody, the more muscle you have may not be an advantage.
No, and like too often, I talk about the headlock. I don't care who you are, how strong you are. you're not going to break someone's skull by applying a headlock. It doesn't work like that. So conditioning matters probably more than power. And certainly for someone like me or someone else coming from a strength training background. On the other hand, do not let anyone tell you, hey, size and power don't matter. They matter, and they matter a hell of a lot. If that wasn't true, then why do we have weight classes?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we have weight classes in wrestling, boxing, MMA, and virtually every other combat sport that there is, and plenty of other ones? The answer is obvious, right? Size and strength do convey
An advantage.
An advantage, not in every situation, and you don't want to rely on it exclusively. But come on, stay away from coaches that tell you it's bad, you don't need it, blah blah blah. It's just not the truth there either. So the truth is somewhere in the middle. As for the ideal strength training for MMA type events, I tend to think that some form of lactic acid tolerance training that has to do more so with loaded carries and moving bags and other large awkward objects around, punching dummies, both hanging from a chain and also groundwork on the ground. All of those things are probably going to be more applicable than any of the conventional lifting that you see in gyms on a day-to-day basis. The best conditioning, frankly, and resistance training is just more sparring. That's it. There's just no substitute for it. If you can't spar, with someone else, like I said, hit a heavy bag and do some loaded carries and, that god awful, what is that bike that that has resistance and just, God, it's terrible.
Like the Airdyne. Yeah, I have one at home. That'll knock you out real fast.
Yeah. But if you have no equipment at all, burpees are probably your best option. And why? Well, largely because you're moving your body up and down and around in other ways that conditioning doesn't. Now, think about that for a second. Get back to power real quick. If moving your body up and down and around exhausts you, and burpees will exhaust anyone, how much more exhausted will you be in the course of doing so if you're trying to move someone else's body around?
Mm-hmm.
That always stuck with me. I came from a different trainer, but always stuck with me. Finally, I would tell you, whatever it is you decide on, strength training or conditioning, train twice as long, maybe 3 times as long as however long you think the fight's going to go, right? And think about this, you're not always going to be the biggest, strongest guy. You may, in fact, need conditioning and technique to carry the day. So in short, some form of lactic acid tolerance type training. However, you also need the actual combat striking, I think, and a first-class heart and lungs.
If you're an MMA fighter, I'll tell you one movement that is worthy of your focus, and that is the deadlift. Matt Hughes, for those of you who remember him, I was a big fan of him as an MMA fighter. He was a little guy. I think he was from Iowa originally, but some flyover state. Grew up as a son of a farmer, and he was not a tall guy. He was short, but he lifted more guys and threw them to the mat than any fighter I'd ever seen. And you knew what he was going to do, because when you got into the clinches with Matt, if he got his arms around you,
suplex, right?
You were going down. And he would lift you off the ground, and he'd either drive himself down onto the ground with you, or he would throw you. He lifted guys off the ground and threw them down so hard that they hit their heads and they were knocked out spontaneously when they hit the ground. I mean, Matt Hughes possessed an amazingly strong posterior chain, and he was a fan of heavy lifting. Lifting bales of hay and straw and lifting stones, and then eventually, doing deadlifts. And the deadlift is worthy of your effort. Get a good, strong deadlift, because you could be gassed and hanging on a guy, and the last thing you do is get your arms down around his waist and lift him off the ground. He's yours now. He's off the ground. He's not doing anything. He's waiting for you to finish what you're doing to do. And if you could throw him down on the ground with all of your force combined with gravity, that could be the end of the fight.
Yeah,
so,
and it often is in the street.
Yeah, on the streets. And according to a lot of the fights I saw, Matt fought a guy that his nickname was the Rat, Carlos the Rat something, and he was actually a physician, and he was a great MMA fighter, black dude, but I think he was Latino, and he finished him in a fight. They were up against the fence, the chain link, and he lifted him up and he threw him down, and his head buckled against the chain and hit the ground, and that was it, Matt was the underdog in that fight. And he ended it by picking him up and throwing him to the ground.
Yeah, manhandled him, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think the deadlift is worthy of anybody's. If you're an MMA fighter and even a boxer, one of the things people fail to realize that made Mike Tyson such a formidable opponent was Cus D'Amato taught him to throw a punch like no other boxer before. If you look at Mike Tyson, it's all in his hips. His arms, you never see Mike Tyson's arm out here in a fight, ever. It's always in close. He's always in close because he is taking his arm and using it as an extension of his body, and his body is what pounding you, not his hand. And Cus D'Amato, that's why Mike Tyson, if you look at him, his feet are planted. He's moving like this. If he's on the inside, he's not out here like these other boxers. Everything's in here. And the reality is that's a strong back. That comes from a strong back, strong glutes, strong hamstrings, a strong foundation, and the deadlift helps build that. Sylvester Ritter says, if I'm going to do a heavy cycle, Anadrol, right? That's A-bombs, Anadrol, right? Yeah. Tren, Test, Deca, and Anavar. I wouldn't combine Anavar with Anadrol anyway. I would just take the Anadrol. For 16 weeks, what should I do to prepare? I've got all my stuff from a new source. Old one got out of the game. I have the money for plenty of food and time to train 5 to 6 days a week. Other than hard work and lots of sleep, is there anything else I should be doing?
Well, first thing is something that most people don't do, but I think it's certainly a worthwhile exercise, especially in the scenario that he's in, and that is get your drugs tested. So if you Google roid test, you're going to see what I'm talking about, right? These are home test kits that will tell you whether that testosterone, 200 milligrams per milliliter that you order, actually has testosterone, 200 milligrams per milliliter, or something else. And although many people will skip that step, I do think it's essential, given what I just discussed. Now, you might find out, I hope you find out, it's 100% true to label. But that's not very likely, given what has been found in the past when they tested, right, all these black market drugs. Some things are tougher to fake than others, okay? So Tren, I'm told, is very tough to fake, if only because you know how you should feel on it. And sometimes test is underdosed. Sometimes DECA turns out to be low dose test. I've seen a lot of that on lab results. And so you need to be careful. Now, there are some things like DECA. If it's real DECA, believe it or not, a home pregnancy test kit should tell you that. I don't know. It's not going to tell you how much is in there, but you'll know what you're getting if it's DECA. Because pregnant women secrete DECA somehow, some way.
Are you sure it's DECA that's detectable from a home pregnancy test kit?
Yeah, I'm almost positive. Nandrolone, right? Yeah. I'll go back and look it up, but I'm almost certain.
Because I know you can tell when somebody is selling you HCG and telling you that it's growth hormone or stuff like that, because HCG is from pregnant women's.
You might be right. I don't know why. Something in my mind is sticking in
Yeah,
there
because
about
because
DECA.
DECA is a it is a progestin.
Yeah.
It is a progestin, but I don't think home pregnancy tests test for progestins or progesterone. They test for human chorionic gonadotropin,
Gonadotropin,
which
yeah.
is a peptide hormone found in the urine of pregnant women.
Huh.
So I think
Yeah, that might be it, or it might be in my head that they tried faking DECA with HCG. I'm not sure. Spend the money to get the Royd test kit, though. That's probably your best option. Anavar, everything that I've ever heard about Anavar is real Anavar is real hard to come by, especially when it's accurately dosed, and because it's expensive, and for what it does, I don't know. I don't know how worth it is. I mean, will it increase? Will it increase strength? Yes. Without causing your weight to go up a lot? Yes. But getting the genuine article is extremely, extremely difficult.
And first of all, if you're taking Anadrol in 50 milligram tabs and you're taking 50, 100, 150 milligrams a day,
Yeah.
and you have to take it a couple times a day, Anadrol, because it has a short half-life in the body. If you're taking Anadrol, which is much more androgenic than even testosterone, because it's a DHT derivative, and then you're taking Anavar with it, that makes no sense. Anavar has extremely low androgenicity, and that's why women use it. So it's not going to give you the strength that Anadrol is going to give you. And if you're taking Anadrol that's like through the roof in androgenicity, why even bother with Anavar, which, as you point out, is questionable at best if it's legit anyway. I mean, I took 100 milligrams of Anavar a day for about 2 months. And I didn't notice anything from it. But then again, I was on a bunch of other stuff. Yeah. So I think sell the Anavar to some chick, I mean, yeah, the Anavar. Yeah, sell the Anavar to some chick, Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing though I didn't hear him mention was about protective compounds, and so if he's really going to be running a couple of orals, and one of those is the big daddy of liver hitters, supposedly, you're going to be using things like TUDCA, N-acetylcysteine, the RALA, things that are going to help, right, your liver process all this. Tren, notoriously hard on the kidneys. Obviously, the kidneys are not as resilient as the liver. I don't know that there's anything that protects the kidneys like we have things to protect the liver.
Thymosin beta 4 will protect the kidneys.
Yeah. Okay. And maybe lots of cranberry juice. But that one I wouldn't touch, especially over the age of 40. A full set of lab panels prior to, during, and after this would be great. I'm fully aware, though, that most guys won't do any lab work. It's expensive. It raises questions. Why are you doing this lab work?
Yeah, but wait a minute. So I want to just mention something. If you go to a place like Any Lab Test now, you can get the entire panel that you need.
Yep.
About $200, and it's sent to you, not your doctor.
Fantastic.
So you can do a lab. You can do lab analysis before getting on. And as a minimum, lab analysis after you're on. If you don't care what you're going on during, then just get it, maybe months after you've run your post-cycle therapy to make sure that your testosterone levels have come back. But that's $200. That's a far cry from, going to Quest Diagnostics with an insurance card.
Yeah, and it's money well spent. The final thing I wanted to note here is anytime before you load up on androgens, and this is a big cycle. Let's not kid ourselves here. Although he didn't give amounts, these are not like gentle drugs in most cases. You need to prepare your heart and lungs for what's coming before you start shooting stuff and taking pills, and you're gaining a pound a day in some cases for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. The response to Anadrol I've seen varies fairly widely. Maybe it has to do with the guys eating, I don't know, but I've seen some people take it and get very little. they'll retain some water, but it sure doesn't look like it's in their muscles. Other guys take it. I've seen them put on a pound or more a day for 2-3 weeks, and it's all in the muscles. So, in the event that the latter happens, you need to be, you need to prepare your heart and lungs at least as well as you possibly can before this starts, and then keep at it. The muscle that you build chemically that you're going to try to hang on to afterwards, a lot of it is fed by blood vessels. A lot of it is fed right by circulation to keep those muscles the size that they are. So think long and hard about your heart and lungs, and do so before you get on all this stuff. I think it'll serve you much better.
Good advice. Let's get 2 questions that were being asked by the viewing audience. This one comes from YouTube. Robert Thompson. He says, thoughts on COVID-19 and vaccines. Media on Telegram very concerning. Are you going to get the vaccine, Rob?
No, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole for several reasons. Having said that, I do think everyone needs to make their own decision, giving their unique individual circumstances.
Yes.
If I've got a job working from home with you, that's one thing. If my job is going into people's homes and businesses to clean it every day, well, that's something different. So, the way I look at it is this. If you are training regularly, if you are taking your vitamin D and know that your vitamin D levels are optimal, if you're eating well, especially if you're sleeping well, and you have reasonable levels of contact with people, no huge crowds, no job like I just described, I wouldn't touch it. And I just, before I got on air, I read about how they're finding now blood clots in people that got the 2 of the 3 vaccines anyway. And look, it's still early, so God knows what else they're going to find.
They rushed it to the market. We don't have enough human data.
Right.
They rushed it to the market, and they scared people into taking it very quickly. I think that's a mistake on the government's part, but they can't be held culpable because they have sovereign immunity, and so you can't do anything about that. The reality is that if you look at, by and large, the deaths from this virus, it is in the very sick, not even the very old now. We have 90-year-olds that are recovering from it. It's in the very sick. It's in the people that are the most unhealthy. It's in the people that are going to die from the seasonal flu. It's in people who are dying rapidly right now because they're obese, they have metabolic derangement, they already have compromised kidneys, fatty liver. These are sick people. And so if you're not one of them, I don't see the value in getting the vaccine personally. Now, I'm not getting it. I do keep my vitamin D levels high, and I do some other things that I think are very, very protective against viruses in general. And I won't get the vaccine. I have no need for it. I'm healthy. I'm strong. I'll take my chances if I get it. I'll get sick for a little while. I'll build up immunity to it, and I'll move past it. Now, there are people out there who are already very sick. They have compromised physical health already. They are the ones that will die from this vaccine. And I say, hey, that's a person that probably should consider taking the vaccine. But if you're not one of them, why take it? I heard an interesting. I talked about this last week. I think Bobby Cooper. He posted something that said, if there was a contraceptive vaccine, and you took it, but you still had to wear a condom, and you could still get pregnant, why did you take it? And that really is the case here, right? No one's saying that this vaccine confers protection against. They say, oh no, you could still get the virus, so you still should social distance, and you should still. And then people say, well, if you do get it, it makes it the symptoms better, not so bad. That's not necessarily true. We have people that are getting the second shot of the 2-shot vaccine, and they're getting what are considered severe symptoms from the vaccine. So the jury's still out on all this.
Yeah. To me, it's critical thinking. There's 3 vaccines out there, and by the government's own admission, it's not getting any better.
Yeah.
Well, what do we roll the vaccines out for? Then?
No.
Come on.
Then Patrick Rogers wants you to answer this question. He says he hears you talk a lot about Reponticum cardamoids and how they help blood markers for sugar and cholesterol, which you've talked about at length. And plus, they build muscle. Where can this be purchased by itself as a standalone ingredient and not as an ingredient in another supplement? Is there a good source of pure Reponticum cardamoid that you would trust?
There is one, but it's not a U.S.-based company. It's actually, I think it's in Poland. And so I've been begging them, along with Tonique, which is a brand I think a lot of their herbal extracts anyway, been begging them to do one. Because a standalone Reponticum, I think, would be a great idea for people. They could see for themselves how it compares to another product like Synthogen with other stuff in it. Or they could use it, right, as a more economical bridge to maybe Synthogen or something else when they can afford it. So the short answer.
Why don't you bring in a high quality Reponticum and just cap it as is?
You know, I honestly never considered that.
Why not? It sounds like a really interesting ingredient, and it conveys a lot of benefits. It's you know, look, there's a lot of products, pre-workouts and such that have creatine in it, right? But then there's a lot of us purists that we just want creatine. When we want to take creatine. I really think you should investigate bringing in a high quality standardized Reponticum standalone with a generic label, nothing expensive, nothing fancy, and just offer that to the public.
I would love to do it. I have a feeling the CFR 111s might be an issue, but you know, those are the FDA's guidelines on good manufacturing practices and such. But I will inquire because I know, okay, maybe I'm not able to do it just by myself, but perhaps I could partner with someone and do it and do a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's about time. I mean, there's a demand out there. It's not what creatine is. It's not what DMAA and pre-workouts are, but there is a need for it. So
I think so.
Why not fill that need, right?
And it's not. There's a white space. It's not out there. It's not available.
Right.
Let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we have more questions lining up from live listeners. We'll get to everything. You're watching the BluePrint Power Hour. You can go to CoachRobRegish.com to learn more. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Wellness trend. Eat that. Do this. Avoid those. How do you know where to start or who to trust? Inside Tracker helps you cut through the noise by analyzing your blood, your DNA, your lifestyle, and your fitness tracker to provide you with a science-backed, trackable action plan on how to live, age, and perform better. Personalized, one-size-fits-one recommendations to help you optimize you. For a limited time, Inside Tracker is offering Superhuman Radio listeners 25% off the entire store. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Inside Tracker. INSIDETRACKER to save 25% off. Change begins on the inside. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor, strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon. Fasting. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's That's REDCON, the number 1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon 1 banner ad today. The power of light can be truly life-changing and an important element for every superhuman. Because of this, I want you to experience the power of award-winning Saluma light therapy. Saluma utilizes NASA research technology to improve health at the cellular level and is cleared by the FDA to effectively treat a variety of pain, muscle and joint conditions, as well as facial wrinkles and acne. Our entire team here at Superhuman Radio uses it. Its innovative shape-taking design allows for easy placement anywhere on the body. Choose from 13 different models. For an exclusive listener discount, go to shrnetwork.biz/Saluma. That's CELLUMA. And use code SHR10 to save 10% off of one of these award-winning devices.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where we use oxygen for the power of good.
Sorry for taking so long to come back, but I had to close the studio door because it sounds like they're using some sort of power machinery out up the hall here from me. You may be able to hear it whining in the background from time to time. Anyway, welcome back to the Blueprint Power Hour, where we answer your questions as best as we can. And the next question comes from, can you hear that, Rob? That squealing?
No, I'm not hearing it come through. I'm not sure.
Good. Doug Summers says, I know you're a big fan of bodyweight stuff and have been using it more and more over the years. Are there different supplements that help, or are they the same supplements that you use with weightlifting?
Good question, right? Not a question I think that we've had before. On some levels, bodyweight work is very different than lifting weights, but in other respects, it's all still strength training. So the question is, about the supplements. One thing that you can count out, in my opinion, is heavy creatine monohydrate use, especially with any type of sugar, et cetera, et cetera. Now you want to keep high carbs out of your diet, high calories, and weight gainers. So in some respects, it is totally different than trying to build as much muscle and take up as much space as you possibly can. All of those things add up just to one overarching no in bodyweight work, which is fast weight gains. Right? You can put 10 pounds on with water, salt, both, creatine, sugar, etc. But it's not going to help. It'll help your bench, squat, and deadlift, but it'll kill you, right? Doing chin-ups. Likewise, I think getting all cranked up on caffeine and some of these crazy pre-workouts I've seen with very high levels, 400 milligrams or more, plus HIMB. That's not ideal. And why? Because it inhibits what's called a high level of NMA, neuromuscular activation, that is seen in almost all bodyweight movements. So the issue is this: if you take too many stimulants, and both your mind and your heart are going to be racing, especially just prior to a set, where you need to perform or are trying to perform more reps than you did last time. And you may only get one shot, depending upon what kind of training program you're on, right? Or you're trying to do a more demanding version of a movement. In either case, you are already on edge. And it will push you over that edge and blow your concentration. And the resulting central nervous system recruitment of the muscles that are necessary to complete the lift. It's one big mess. It doesn't look good. It looks real bad when you miss. And a lot of it is due to that overstimulation. Now, watch any pre-workout tweaker, okay? They're usually pacing in between sets. They can't sit still. They're talking real fast. They're talking to anyone that'll listen. Sometimes they talk to themselves. So physically, they're moving fast, but their mind is moving even faster. And that wastes a lot of physical and mental energy that should be going 100% into your work sets. So, needless to say, those are out. I would consider instead the following supplement protocol to be ideal if you want to use a quote unquote pre-workout for body weight stuff. I would use 3 to 5 grams of a white or a green strain of kratom about an hour before training. If necessary, a little adrafinil or modafinil, depending upon what you have available. And then finally, to repair the tissue damage, I take Synthogen before, after, and during every workout. It goes like this. The kratom takes the place of traditional pre-workouts like ephedrine and caffeine. And everybody knows on this show, or should, how much I love those two. But I no longer use them pre-workout. Why? For all the reasons that I just said. They're not ideal. Anybody who's used it, right, knows kratom is almost perfect for what I'm describing. Anyway, the adrafinil, which is the legal cousin of modafinil, which really is only Schedule 4, but still, those are both optional. But I admit they seem to certainly help during particularly demanding or long workouts. Synthogen does that job of keeping cellular energy exceedingly high, yet it lets you recover incredibly fast after you've depleted all of that cellular energy. And here's the best part. There's no deleterious weight gain, right? I've heard it described as like creatine, right? But without any water. So what have we done here with this? Nowhere in this equation do you see caffeine, but you get a real nice lift. Nowhere in this equation do we see yohimbe or other jittery stimulants. We actually have things that, if anything, level you out. And so those would be my ideal supplements to use with only body weight training. I don't think the adrafinil, modafinil, or even Synthogen is necessary every single workout. But because they work so well, frankly, I wind up using them almost every time, just being honest.
So Dean Douglas says, what in your opinion is the single most important thing if I want to be a successful bodybuilder? Diet, training, drugs, or is it just keeping at it until I get somewhere?
Full disclosure, I'm not a bodybuilder. I never aspired to be one, never was interested in being one. So having said that, I've been around a lot of them, right, over many decades, and I'm still around a lot of them in my gym. Being successful in bodybuilding cannot, in my opinion, be boiled down to just one most important thing.
Wait a minute. I want to hold that.
Yep.
That's like saying, what's the one most important thing to be an NBA basketball player or an NFL? This is why there are so few top tier athletes, because everybody wants that one thing, but it's a dozen things that you have to do consistently for decades.
Right.
That's why there's not a lot of champions, because people don't have the desire or the drive, motivation, and consistency to do it.
Yeah, and even then, there's no guarantee that what you have is going to be what the judges are looking for that week. I've seen contests where clearly the guy was bigger, better muscle separation, but he wasn't as ripped, and he loses the contest. Up until that point, they were looking for bigger and more muscle separation. Right. So that guy just, almost killed himself for what? A trophy? Look, we need to define what successful bodybuilder means, okay? Unless you're independently wealthy, making a living at this it has to be priority number one, because nothing else comes after it without that. You can't train, you can't diet, you're going to be homeless, and you can't afford groceries or even a gym membership, right? If bodybuilding doesn't put money on the table and pay the bills. Now, you can, of course, work a 9-to-5 job like many people do, spend every cent on bodybuilding and continue to chase that dream. But the sad truth is this: the number of men that make a decent living at this sport is very, very small. Okay, you've probably heard it said you can count them on one hand. I think you might take two hands, but still the point remains. Even the ones, and you and I were talking about this before we got on air, Carl, today. Even the ones who have quote unquote made it have paid a terrible price. The most successful Mr. Olympia in history is, as far as I know, Ronnie Coleman, right? 8 Sandows. Ronnie Coleman today is a broken man.
Cripple. He's crippled.
Yeah, he's crippled. I mean, physically broken. He still has a great attitude. I don't know how, but check out what happened to him. In 2020, he revealed that he could no longer walk due to botched surgical procedures that were necessary to correct his bodybuilding injuries. Saying that he may never walk again, Coleman blamed his problems on questionable surgeries and noted that his last 3 surgeries, and he's had a lot more than 3, cost a total of $2 million. Remember, folks, there's no medical insurance. There's no group medical plan in bodybuilding. And Ronnie, comparatively speaking to everyone else, he had it all, right? He had 8 Sandows, 8 Mr. Olympias.
And he won the Arnold a couple times, I believe, too. Maybe
right.
2 times, at least 2 times, I believe.
Right. And so today, it makes me so sad. He can't walk. He's crippled. And the prospects for the future don't look all that great. So look, folks, understand there's no retirement plan. There's not even a 401k. There's no union. There are no paid vacations and no health insurance. In professional bodybuilding, you are on your own. And let's face it, they are daredevil chemists. And so when you have that, you may have, big medical bills. It's probably a better chance than some people in the general population. But anyway, look, I think you get the point. There's a lot that goes into being a successful bodybuilder. Carl said it. You need to get everything right all the time. And that
there's no off season. So like football players, they have an off season. They're like, oh, we don't have to start playing again for 5 months, 6 months. So the next 3 months, I'm just going to party and trash and do what I want. Bodybuilders can't do that because during the off season is when they're building, when they're improving. And then during competition, that's when they're competing. So there's no off season for bodybuilders, number one. Number two, it is by far become the unhealthiest sport, if you want to call it a sport, out there. There's no other sport as unhealthy. And I know that they use drugs in football and other sports. Don't get me wrong. But they don't do the polypharmacy that bodybuilders do. They don't do the high-risk drugs like DNP and God knows what else. They don't do that. Bodybuilding has really become an unfortunate display of recklessness more than anything else. Granted, these guys get huge and big. Oh my God. But to what end? To what end? That you got a bunch of trophies. Maybe you rise to the top. You win some high-level competitions that give you a few $100,000. And it costs you millions to get where you are, and it's going to cost you millions later on to stay alive.
Yeah. And success really has nothing to do with money, nothing to do with trophies or trophy wives. Success means, in bodybuilding, to me, it means living well. It means being in great shape, good spirits, and good health.
Now, there are bodybuilders who've achieved this. Jay Cutler has taken care of himself. Jay Cutler's choices of food when he was a bodybuilder was selected because they had the least deleterious impact on the body, consuming tons and tons and tons of. And when he got out, he kept training, and he's still a big, strong guy.
Right.
And, Dorian Yates is another one. Dorian's by and large in fairly good shape, from what I understand, in good shape. So there's a lot of bodybuilders who have survived their competitive careers and done well, but there's probably just as many, if not more, that stopped training, fell apart, and became unhealthy. And so, again, and Rob points out something good. So what is your estimation of what success is? Is success just getting a couple trophies and a couple swords that you can hang on your wall, but you're broke?
Yeah. Well, you said it, survived. I mean, that's about as good as you can expect survive.
Yeah. It's a niche game. It's a very small playing field. It's, and also once you've been a bodybuilder, people in mainstream society look at you like, well, you're just a druggie. You're willing to take drugs. In fact, somebody sent me an interview today where they're talking about this guy went on an AM radio station, and he's a former competitor, and he's talking about all the drugs you have to do to be a bodybuilder. And, and people are like, oh, that's so horrible. And it's not fair. And, they're using drugs in baseball. They're using drugs in football. Yeah. Even hockey players are using drugs now. So it's not just bodybuilding, but it's a matter of degrees. I mean, you don't have a hockey player or a football player that's using 4 different types of androgens, some of them injectable, some of them oral, plus aromatase inhibitors, plus water pills, plus, it's just growth hormone. You don't have that. The bodybuilding lifestyle is an extreme in recklessness.
Yeah, I would agree.
We have a couple questions to answer, and then we'll come back and do the blueprint tip of the day. So here we go.
Yep.
Gordon Franz says, standalone Reponticum cardamoid. He tagged you on a Facebook post yesterday. Ergolog is reporting that what is out there and what's mislabeled and underdosed. So I guess if you go to Ergolog, you can find, Patrick, if you're still watching, you may be able to find some sources for Reponticum cardamoid that are legit. And then Robert Thompson is asking the question, what really happened to Marvelous Marvin Hagler? Was it the vaccine? No one's talking about it. Yeah, I don't know. What about DMX? I've heard that DMX just got the vaccine 2 or 3 days before he died. And the initial report in the media was it was a drug overdose, but the pharmacology from his autopsy said there were no drugs in him. And, the media is very cautious right now not to stop any momentum from this big push for everyone to get the vaccine. So instead of them saying, we don't know what happened to Marvelous Marvin Hagler, they're just squelching the message. Instead of them saying, hey, DMX may have died from the vaccine, they're saying, oh, it was drugs in his system, but then they're not following up with the same level of messaging that, hey, his autopsy showed that he had no drugs in him. This is a scary time, folks. I've been saying for as long as I've been doing this show that the new evolutionary selective pressure is where you're getting your information from. And the organizations that are tasked with delivering information have become possibly the most corrupt next to the politicians. In fact, they work hand in hand. They carry the political message that the politicians want. So they're as culpable as the corrupt politicians today. And so where you get your news from today is going to determine whether or not you make good decisions or bad decisions if you are devoid of all critical thinking. If you're a critical thinker, you already know, like, wait a minute, I'm not going to do this because they say to.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The spin that you get on most news channels is nothing like real news. Sad to say.
This government has killed and poisoned more people because of their advices on food choices. The FDA has blood on its hands because of approving drugs that they didn't even know whether they were safe or not. They just took the science that Big Pharma gave them and ran with it. I mean, we as a population are way too trusting of this government that has let us down time and time and time and time and time and time again. And those people out there who march forward with the message, and I had to go get my car yesterday. I had to get tires on my car, and I walked into the tire place. I was literally going to walk in, get my keys, give them a credit card, and walk out. And I didn't have a mask on. And so there was a woman there, and so I while I was standing at the counter, I was probably about 15, 20 feet away from her. She said to the guy at the counter, "I'm going across the street," like real huffy. And she went, and he laughed and he said, "Oh, it's because you don't have a mask on." I says, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, she just read the riot act to somebody else who came in without a mask on a moment ago." And I guess she had run out of steam and she didn't feel like reading me the riot act. So she just left. And he said, the funny thing is that she told me she's got the vaccine. She's had both shots. I said, well, if she has the vaccine, what is she worried about?
Yeah.
You know, I see people in their cars by themselves wearing their masks. Now, maybe it's easier than taking it off and putting it on. I've given them that pass. Oh, maybe it's just easier. I see people in their cars wearing their masks. I saw a guy on a bicycle the other day wearing a mask. They may as well just wear signs that say, "I'm stupid and I believe anything that you'll tell me," as long as it's coming from the government. Folks, the government has let us down thousands of times every year. They will let us down again. And if you blindly believe everything that comes from the government through its intermediaries, which is big media today, I'm sorry, you're being lied to. And if you can't wrap your head around that, if you are so dug in to your what's the word I want to say? Your dogma that no, the government is everything. The government. I'm sorry. I feel sorry for you. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I said, these are no longer news organizations. They are
propaganda.
Propaganda. Right.
Propaganda.
That's the word.
All right. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with the BluePrint tip of the day. Go to CoachRobRegish.com. As a listener of this show, you know how important your gut is to your overall health. Bioptimizers has a potent product to heal and repair your gut unlike anything else. It's called Leaky Gut Guardian. It's powered by patented IGY Max, an egg-based protein that enhances gut health, reverses antibiotic damage, and strengthens your immune system. Available in 2 delicious powders, vegetarian vanilla and chocolate carnivore. Simply mix it with your favorite beverage. Repair your gut and power up your immune system risk-free and save 10% off. Go to shrnetwork.biz/leaky gut. Don't delay. Fix your gut today. Fasting. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor, strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon. TaylorMade Health is focused on making sure you're able to perform and look your best. They are a leader in game-changing supplements and cosmetic products. Whether you want to increase strength, expedite recovery, facilitate soft tissue repair, or reduce deep wrinkles, TaylorMade Health has you covered. TaylorMade Health is also the home to Dr. Seed's products such as BPC, BPC Plus, and the Chill Pill. All of my listeners can now get 20% off their first order with code TRY20. That's TRY20. This code can even be used on subscription orders. Visit shrnetwork.biz/try20 today and use code TRY20 for 20% off your first order.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where brawn and brains finally meet.
Hey, welcome back. I sat back and my screen moved. So hold on, let me see. This thing's a pain in the ass. There you go. Look at that. Magic. I'm no longer a ghost. So, Rob, what is the BluePrint tip of the day?
Tip of the day is understanding stop loss. So stop loss is a concept both in investing and in insurance that is used to limit the damage done, so to speak, by making a poor decision or limiting your liability from a catastrophic event. There's some break there that prevents, some further calamity. In the former, in the world of investing, let's say you bought a stock for $100 a share, but you put a stop loss order on it for $30. Well, if the company goes under, if they go bankrupt and the stock goes to zero, and you're out with your family eating and you don't know this, the stock, because of your stop loss, would have been sold at $30. So you only lose 70% of your investment, right? You won't lose everything. Similar type of thing with stop loss insurance, where a lot of small companies will self-insure their medical claims, and they'll pay those bills up to, let's say, $1 million. Anything above and beyond that $1 million amount is paid for by the insurance company with which they contract. So those are two forms of stop loss that I've used, experienced, and saw the value in. And in either one of them, there sometimes comes a point when you're either not getting back, right, something for all the time and energy you invested in it, or it's not just worth it anymore. It's going to come up a lot in life. So it's not just me rambling about another non-issue, investing, insurance. What's he talking about? It happens in everything from marriages to that training program that you ordered and you've been using for the past 6 weeks. Not getting out of one of these relationships when it's long overdue can do a lot of damage. Just ask anyone who's been stuck, right, in a miserable marriage with a spouse that is refusing to pull their weight. Or how about starting a business that's been losing money for years, but you still haven't shut it down because you're just so emotionally attached to it. A lot of us, including me, stay too long in these types of relationships. And I think I know why. As the old saw goes, breaking up is hard to do. And why is that? Well, after you've invested so much money in something or time, or whatever,
Can't walk away.
You can't walk away. You're much more likely to be in denial about things and think, oh, this stock will come back or this person will change and come around. And the funny part is that it's obvious as hell to everyone around you, but you just can't see it. It's like you got blinders on. You should have gotten out of something like that, and I'm talking to myself here too, months, maybe years ago, right? And sometimes it's you just don't want to hurt another party's feelings. Whatever it is, you stayed in too long and it's hurt you. Okay. Now, nobody read into this. It has nothing to do with my marriage, nor my business, nor anything with SHR. It has everything to do with using some form of stop loss as a tool to protect you in life.
So how do you do it? So you have to make a decision on how much you're willing to lose and then say, I'm out.
Yeah. I mean, here's the crux of the issue. You need to know when it's time to get out. And that's different for everyone. If I just got married and my spouse is just not towing the line, pulling her weight, do I give it a year, 3 years, or 5 years, or 6 months before I divorce her?
Mm-hmm.
So what I would encourage you to do is draw a line in the sand somewhere and get the hell out as soon as that threshold, that line has been crossed. You don't need to be nasty about it. Just let the other party know you no longer wish to continue, and this is important. Never look back. If you do, you will risk more time, energy, and money wasted. And that is time, energy, and money that could have otherwise been used in some other productive endeavor. It's called opportunity cost. Okay. or what you lost out on because you hadn't extracted yourself from a bad situation. So stop loss. Don't forget the words or the concept. Resolve today to use it judiciously going forward. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad that you did.
So I have experienced this, and I thought about the psychological parts of it in a stock trade that I was involved with this year. So I bought this stock last year at 6 cents, and I know nothing about stock. I have a good friend who's a brilliant trader, brilliant, and so he said this is why this is a good stock. It's worthy of your investment. And I bought, at 6 cents, I bought a lot of it. He bought more. He actually bought 5,600,000 shares. Do the math. That's a $360,000 investment. Most of us don't have that money laying around or will risk it. Well, he told me that this stock will probably go up to around $4 a share. And I'm like, that is awesome. And in fact, a year later, it did. And I sold it at $4.
Wow. Good for you.
I made good. Now, keep in mind that at that $4.21 a share that it was at that moment, he stands to make $24 million. This is generational wealth in this one trade. And he does this all the time, believe it or not. I mean, this guy is really smart. But he thought to himself, maybe 421 isn't the top.
Yeah.
And when I sold out, I kind of had I lived in Las Vegas. I watched a lot of people lose millions of dollars. Yeah. And they always lost it after winning. They win a bunch of money and they think, oh, there's no end in sight. And that old adage, you got to know when to fold them, is very good. Take some money home today and don't be jealous if other people stuck around and made more. Well, needless to say, the stock went down to $1.40 and he still stands to make $10 million. It's not like as though, at $1.40, he bought it at 6 cents. He's made generational wealth no matter what on this deal. But I actually talked to him that day. I said, look, I'm going to get out. I mean, I'm more than happy with the gains I made on my investment. Yeah. And he said, well, I'm going to stick around because I really think this stock has the potential to go up. And he gave me all the right reasons. And the truth of the matter is, I believe it's going to go back up and surpass the $4.20 a share. And I believe he will end up making that 24 million, but it's going to take some more time because the company is now starting to in a position to earn money. So it's really going to be doing good. Yeah. But I don't feel bad. If it goes up to $7 a share, I got out at $4. I made money. I bought it at 6 cents. I made money. I'm happy. That's what happens to people. They get to this point. They're like, well, I'm just going to wait a little longer. And they get to them. Then they're so far invested. They have so much sunk cost. It's virtually impossible to walk away because now he's looking at it like, and he's not looking like I can walk away with 10 million. He's looking at it like, wow, I could have walked away with 24. Now I'm so deep. I got to stay now.
Yeah. And you are one of the very few people who can actually do that. And the brain chemistry behind that cycle is fascinating. What is it that causes someone to make 20-something million dollars and instead of punching out or even selling half, right? He lets the rest of it ride and it's come down. Now, fortunately, it sounds like it's still worth a lot of money, but
yeah, he still makes 10 million now, right now. And actually the stock is starting to go back up. So in the end, he's probably going to get back to that $4 a share. And and this time, I'll bet you if it hits $4, he cashes out then and doesn't wait for it to go to 7.
Yeah. Well, living in Vegas, you've seen it. I don't need to tell you. It's a sad cycle because you'll always hear about people's winners. You'll never hear about their losers.
True.
They don't tell you anything about those. And some people, I've known people that have won 6 figures in one night that left with nothing.
Yeah, they gave it all back.
There are even people that leave with less than nothing because they max their credit cards out chasing loss.
Right.
They're convinced if I could just make one more bet and win it all back, then I'll walk out of here. And they win it all back, and then they're gambling again, and they've lost it all again. Oh man, it's terrible.
Well, and I want to go on the record as saying that this stock will go back up because there are some circumstances. But I was happy at $4 a share. I was happy with that, and he will end up making all this money back. But he does this all the time. I mean, he's made bundles of money with these types of trades. So he's a brilliant investor, and I'm not saying anything bad about him, but I'm just saying there's a mentality that makes you hang around. If you're not careful, you'll hang around until you got nothing left to hang around for. You know what I mean? It's like, so yeah. But anyway, great show today. Hope everybody shares the show. We answered all the questions that were up there. I don't think we missed any. And that's it. CoachRobRegish.com is the place to go. And we'll see everybody tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. Thanks for being here today. And thanks, Rob, for all the hard work.
Thank you. Thanks, Carl. Bye-bye.
All right. See you later.